You're listening to the All Systems Go podcast, the show that teaches you everything you need to know to put your business on autopilot. Learn how to deploy automated marketing and sales systems in your business the right way with your host, the professor of automation himself and founder of Automation Bridge, Chris Davis.
Welcome to the All Systems Go podcast. I'm your host, Chris L. Davis, the founder and chief automation officer of Automation Bridge, the place online to learn about small business marketing automation, where we focus on turning digital marketing professionals into automation service providers. And if you'd like to learn more about what that means, or you'd like to become one, please visit automationbridge.com/ASP. This episode, I had the opportunity to invite Stanley Tate of Stanley Tate Esq. He's a native of Chicago's South Side and obsessed with student loan law and typography. Now, Stanley told me in between watching Being Mary Jane and The Good Wife, he's reliving his dreams of the NBA stardom and trying and failing to cook a perfect pot of rice. But seriously, he helps clients develop their student loan repayment strategy. His firm, again, is Tate Esq LLC, and it offers a variety of student loan debt solutions, from eliminating defaults, negotiating settlements, defending lawsuits, lowering monthly payments, and pursuing discharges and bankruptcy. And I may have said that and you're like, hey, that sounds like an infomercial, Chris. What's going on? What does this have to do with automation? You all are in for a treat. Trust me. When you hear when you hear Stanley explain what he's doing in his business, why his approach, you'll see clearly the reasoning why I had him on the podcast. And it couldn't have gone any better. All right. But before we jump into it, if you're new to the podcast, make sure you subscribe and share after you listen to this podcast in its entirety. I want you to make sure that you know what you're getting into. I do. I want you to make a fully knowledgeable and aware decision to join the family of listeners of the All Systems Go podcast. So at the end of this podcast, make sure you subscribe and share. For those of you who are listeners and for whatever reason just haven't subscribed yet, we're in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. You can subscribe on YouTube. There's no reason to continue to wait. While you're at it, your 5-star ratings and reviews would be greatly appreciated. If for any reason you're having troubles leaving a review, we can do all the heavy lifting for you. If you go to automationbridge.com/review, you can submit your review there and we'll handle getting it to the appropriate platforms. All right. So let's jump into today's content with Stanley, where we get to talk about automation for attorneys. Stanley, welcome to the podcast, man. I'm glad that you accepted the invitation. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How's everything with you?
Oh, man, I can't complain. And just for the listeners, I have to qualify this one. This is going to be a nice change of pace for us because I think we have a huge opportunity to highlight Stanley, who I believe exemplifies a lot of the struggles as well as what a triumph can look like in the space, regardless of what industry you're in. So before I get into that, I also want to tell everybody, I am a lurker online, but I'm not a troll. Okay. So I like to go around and see who's doing what. And Stanley's website came across to me and instantly grabbed my attention. I went through it. It was focused. He didn't have all of these extra pages and extra elements. And for the listeners of the podcast, you know of my struggles with attorneys. You know my rants that I have in the past, that they don't call you back. They have all of this, hey, fill out this information, XYZ, and nothing ever happens. So Stanley was a breath of fresh air. So I'm looking forward to diving into it. But before I get ahead of myself, Stanley, give us a little bit about your background and your business.
Stanley Tate. I'm just a dude from the south side of Chicago. I grew up on 79th and King Drive. And I mentioned that specific location because it helps inform the trajectory of my life and how I think about things, which is like, you're not going to be handed anything. And the only way you're going to change your stars, to quote A Knight's Tale, a dope movie, but is to take your destiny by your hands and say, how do I make this work? How do I pull myself from here to get to where I'm trying to go? And inside of that, what I also understood too is that what's going to be important is how you carry yourself, the integrity with which people see you. And because I knew if I'm walking the streets of Chicago, like people can smell the insincerity on you and they're going to try you. So I knew I had to be real about it. And that's helped inform me along my career, which has led me to the military, led me to law school, led me to starting this law practice where I help people with student loan problems. And that part is key, that integrity part, because there's so much BS information out there with people promising the moon to people, and they get so overwhelmed by these choices, then they start to distrust everything. And so my job is to cut through that and connect with you across this computer screen to where you're like, I know this dude, I can trust this dude, let's go. Because at the end of the day, it's important to me making the money that I want to make, is that I have to have that trust built in as an individual service provider. So like that St. Arthur King Drive has informed everything going forward to me being a student loan lawyer, which I've been doing for the past 8 years now.
So I hope my listeners can now see exactly why I have Stanley on, because there were no shortcuts. This was not easy. This was not a predetermined path. And you not only with life, those same skills and determination you had to take to this technological landscape. So walk me through this. You go, you're in the military, you come out, you practice law, get your degree, and now you're looking at, okay, how do I get clients? What led you to the internet?
So for me, the way I looked at it is that, how are people going to find me? Yep. And so you talk to other lawyers and they're like, hey, join this business networking group. Go talk to your colleagues and take the cases they don't want to take, right? Or then go talk to cross industry, like other legal professionals that are in different fields, and say, hey, I have a service that helps your clients. So it was all this very like non-scalable way of building your business and building referrals, and it wasn't reliable, right? You couldn't determine when you were going to get a referral or not, when you were going to get someone contacting you. So I was like, okay, there has to be a better way. And then I looked at the internet and I'm like, okay, how do people go about this? And you saw that I saw there were some people that did PPCs, there were other people that did blog posts. And then when I read their blog posts, and I looked at their sites, I was like, yo, the UX is trash. I don't want to read this site, and it's not written to the lay person. It's written from a lawyer writing as if they're writing to another lawyer. Yep. And I was like, okay, this kind of sucks. Can I do this better? Now, the thing is, I don't know nothing about SEO at this time. I know absolutely zero. Yeah. So I just started writing. And then that gets me a couple things and everything like that. But I was like, no, there has to be a better way to do this, because I believe in evergreen content. Believe in it, because with PPC, once you turn that funnel off, the leads are gone. So what have I really spent for at that point? Because now I'm just on this treadmill where I have to keep spending in order to keep those leads coming if I don't invest in evergreen traffic. So then I looked at okay, how do I get better at this evergreen? And I spent money on all type of BS that don't do anything for you. Yeah. And I talked to all the consultants and everything, but it wasn't until I came across Ahrefs as the tool, and then I started reading their blog, and then I started following other people in the SEO field that I actually began to understand it better. And especially what's tough is you'll read a lot of these blogs that are geared more towards enterprise level content marketing. They're not for the one-off individual guy, typically that's trying to scale beyond just their simple I got these few pages, right? These elementary things. Because I wanted to compete on a large scale. And I was like, how the hell do I do that? So that's how I got into it, was just trying, failing, paying for stuff that worked. Sometimes a lot of it didn't work. Yeah. And then you learn and you iterate and iterate and iterate.
Yeah, it's, the more you talk, what I'm seeing is you're a businessman that's an attorney. right?
And
Instead of
that's exactly how I describe it to my friends. It's like,
right,
because my boys are like, they'll look at me and be like, man, you got it easy because you're a lawyer. I'm like, dude, this law degree don't mean nothing. I know a bunch of broke ass lawyers.
right.
Like, so, but my ability to hustle, my ability to look at this thing and say, okay, how, and what's key here is looking at the life you want to lead, that you want to have for yourself,
Yeah.
and then working backwards from there. And I realized me just relying on, at the time I was living in St. Louis, me relying on person to person referrals in the type of industry I'm in, which is a consumer based industry where the average dollar amount per client ain't that high. So I
Mm,
gotta have volume in order to live the life that I want. So
yeah.
how the hell do I get to that volume? And for
Mm,
me, I realized it had to be through organic SEO, through long form, through this content, this evergreen content that's going to exist. That all I have to do is nurture, sprinkle a little bit every now and then to keep it ranking.
yep. Yep. No, that's good. I want to ask you, were you always business minded, or was this something that you discovered later on in life?
Nah, man, I was always about that bread. So like, because I didn't have anything growing up. Like I
Yeah.
had few options, and so like you turn to certain industries that you have to learn how to sell, and that is going to be key because at that stage where I was at, like as a youngin, I'm not selling a scarce product. I have a commodity, and this
Yeah.
commodity, it's you can't really. How do you get the price and everything like that? How do you charge what you want? You're not a scarce thing.
Yeah.
So then you got to learn how to sell and to get people to come to you and value your thing differently. And so all
Mm,
those lessons I learned from a kid have informed everything moving forward, where I have to look at it like, what is the life I want? How do I get here? This is a business. Going to law school was a business decision. It wasn't I was in love with the law. I'm not going
mm,
I love the law now and what it can do because it's like the greatest like magic show ever. But like the the decision to go to law school was like I looked at it, was like, yo, if I get this law degree, I can do so much more. It opens up and gives me so many other options in
mhm.
life. Because people treat you like you smart as shit just because you got a law degree, which is
Yeah.
crazy. Because like I know a bunch of lawyers who don't know much of anything, but you get that perception of
Yeah.
intelligence, that
Yep.
perception of problem solving,
Yep.
and that was valuable to me at the time.
Yep. Yep. No, that makes perfect sense. And you can see the parallel of you strategically approach your life, that same strategy you use in business. And I think it's really what sets you apart. By the way, everybody, while you're listening, if you're on your phone or in front of your computer, I want you to go to Stanley's website. It's Tate Esq for Esquire, Tate TATEESQ.com, and you'll be able to see exactly why his website appealed to me specifically in his space, and it'll start to give you some context and give some credence to what he's saying and his approach to growing his business. So there's this fearlessness that you have with technology, and I want to highlight it, Stanley, and this is for everybody listening who is the traditional CEO that would rather hire somebody to do the technology. You get overwhelmed quickly. I want you to talk from the perspective of what is it in you, or just maybe a natural affinity for technology that didn't make it didn't serve as a hurdle for you. It was something that you were just like, okay, I'm going to do this. All of your attorney friends, all of all of your associates, they're doing it one way: referrals, go get complimentary services, go get the leftovers. And so you not only had to break from that norm, but you're also in a very difficult space in technology where there's even more liars and fakers, and there's a lot to navigate. So what was that in you that was just like, I'm not scared of this. I'm going to figure this out.
Oh, the big thing is what you highlight is that there's so many BS people trying to pitch us services about what they can do for you from a web design, SEO standpoint, right? The
Yeah.
numbers they can produce for you. And I was always
Yeah.
like, yo, if you got such killer results, then you don't need to be out here cold calling people to try to get business, right? And if you were
Yeah.
getting someone number one results and all this other great work, then they would not stop paying you because it would be an investment for them. They're like, no, this is what I need to do. So
Yeah.
something doesn't ring true here.
Mm.
And so you're looking at all this BS, and I'm watching all my people get caught up in these referral websites where they're paying for leads on a monthly basis. I was like, this is stupid because you don't control any of it. And then I looked at it from that standpoint. I was like, look, either I'm going to go down this path over here, which is I know it's a treadmill to mediocrity, or I could sit here and suck it up and try to learn how to do this stuff myself and fail and iterate and make it happen. And that's where like law school was helpful, because law school, look, I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but you learn how to teach yourself. And you gain that confidence that if I can teach myself these courses of law, I can teach myself anything. Because the cats who are doing this for the most part, that are doing your SEO, your web design, they're not brilliant. They just know more than you, right? That's because they spent effort doing it. So if I can take that effort, and I realized too early on when I was starting my business, the one resource I had was time. I got more time because I ain't busy with clients. So I got to start getting clients. Until then, my resource is time. So I would be up late as hell watching YouTube videos, on blogs, trying to learn how to do stuff. At the time, I was on like a WordPress website. So I'm learning how to do PHP and to design things the way I want. And I wanted to do it because I knew if I invested in something that looked good and was easy, people would stay and they would keep coming. I don't know why I believe that. I just did, right? And I just kept iterating from there.
Yeah, I love the work, man. There is nothing, nobody and nothing can replace it. You know, it doesn't matter who you work with, what companies you hire, what experts come on. There's still going to be just that regular grit that's involved with it. And tell me this. I was looking up some of the history behind like your website and how it's transitioned over the years. Tell me some of the frustrations you faced, and this is for all of my web developers and web designers that are listening. Tell me some of the frustrations you faced when you were leaning on these companies to design a website for you and going through that process.
So to be fair, I couldn't even afford companies starting off, right? I could afford like the individual. And the problem with the individual is that what you don't realize when you start is that you're actually when you're hiring someone to build a website for you, a lot of times we're hiring someone to do multiple jobs. And they ain't Cheesecake Factory. They can't be great at everything. So usually they're either going to be really good at one part, which is they'll be great at like the design aspect, but suck at coding. So now you got the super bloated site because they just use some type of like basic site builder at the time that sucked and was bloated with code. Or they're really great at code, but your design is trash. And so you're not realizing that you're hiring for different jobs really is what you need to be doing. And so at that stage, I was hiring individuals who I wanted them to be everything. And then they're charging such a low rate that they're trying to just speed through it and just give you a template website. But then also inside of it, they drop the ball on so many things because they're overwhelmed, because they too want to run a successful business, but they haven't figured out how to make the type of money they want to make and charge. And so I wouldn't be coming to them if I could afford $5,000. They're charging like $2,000 for a website. And you think that's a lot of money at your stage. And it is if you don't really have a business set up yet that's generating money. But at $2,000, you're basically setting it on fire because you don't get anything that really has any value to you. So you're better off just using a Studio Press theme to start. And that's kind of like what I ended up having to lean into, because I realized the people that I was working with, their bandwidth was limited, but they were trying to squeeze as much into it. Balls get dropped. You're not getting the site performance you want. You're having to go back to them and say, hey, can you update this? I'm getting all these Google errors and stuff like that. And it takes them 2-3 weeks to get back to you. And then they just fall off. They just disappear. And they show up 3 months later like, oh, my bad, I had something personal going on.
Yep.
I'm like, dude, my business don't give a shit about your personal stuff. Like, so those were my frustrations. But then as my business grew, and this is the thing where I tell people, like, it don't gotta be perfect. There's like Apple got all these versions, right? Like the iPhone has all these versions. So we start here, we iterate. And over the process, as I was having the frustrations, I had to learn. I told myself, I'm going to learn to do this myself so I don't have to rely on this person over here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You said so much, but that responsibility that you took ownership for your business and your success is key, because a lot of times I see people that just want to throw it off. Hey, build my website. And like you said, in that statement, you're saying, I need you to be a designer. I need you to be a developer. Oh, and by the way, can you be a marketer too? All in one. And they can't. In a novice or a less integrous individual will promise all, hey, yes, we can do it all. Right. But if you as a CEO are not watching them, doing your checks and balances, and it never stops. Everybody that I hire, I don't learn what I'm not trying to be as good as them at what they're doing, because that's why I hired them. But I need to know enough to properly manage them. Right. So I could say, hey, whoa, wait a minute. Why is that there? Hey, why did you put that there again? And that is the piece that's missing. And you'll see that the marketplace is flooded with people who complain about the results that they get because they don't take on the responsibility to truly manage the process. And in some cases, jump in and do it yourself. So I was surprised when I reached out to you. So, before I go there. So let me just say, I went to your website, and it was so engaging and so easy to get the information that I needed. So I'm a bad test, because, I know what to look for in XYZ. So I showed it to my sister. I showed it to my wife. They all had the same response. So I said, I knew it. I knew, if it's simple for them, then it passes the mark. So tell me a little bit, let our listeners know, how is the lead gen flow working well for you? To me, from the outside, it appears that your website as constructed is generating you a lot of quality leads because your messaging is on point. Is that what you're seeing on the back end as well?
Yeah, definitely. So this wasn't an overnight process. You learn what questions you need to ask, how you need to present things, because like far too often what we do is we just throw a form out there, right? And some people's forms are ridiculously long, and it's like, I'm not filling this out. And so then you have huge drop off. You look at analytics and you can see the drop off from start to completion. And so I had to learn, and that's where it's helpful over the time, learning SEO, learning all these other things. I could look at these reports and understand what was going on. So I looked at analytics and I saw like, okay, these forms, too long. Then you also see if you do too short, you get a bunch of BS leads. And now your time is wasted, because if you're automating things, there's a certain vulnerability that goes into it, because your calendar is out there for everyone to schedule. And you can get filled up with trashy leads right away. And so then you learn, okay, I can't really rely on this form tool that WordPress has or this other thing has. I have to move more into like conditional logic, right? And then you get into the design of the form. And so from that standpoint, I have been able to create this thing where there is a filtering system that occurs on the front end. I'm able to use conditional logic as well to say, actually, this person isn't a great lead for me. You get this separate access to me. And maybe it's limited, like I take all my non-qualified leads
Yeah.
on one day at one batch. And so I bust through all those BS leads at one time because there's still some value there, but you're really like
Yeah.
scraping for gold at that point. You're a
Yep.
pan
Yep.
miner at that point, and you're hoping you get a little bit of something. And I'm willing to take that investment because it pays off, but I don't want them spread throughout the week. I want them batched on one
Yeah.
day because mentally it takes way less out of me knowing that this is my one day of unqualified leads.
Yeah.
Then we open up the calendar for all these other leads who are more qualified based on what it is they said. But that's a work in progress because you have to understand like what language you want to point out, what are the key terms, because there's not a great way to do it. You have to kind of set up in Zapier and do these other things to kind of recognize these key indicators on the back end. So that has been a process, but the whole system of building a website that generates quality leads in my sleep, dude, I have it good right now, man. But it's been like a combination of a bunch of tools and work getting to this point.
Yep. And I love it. And so again, everybody, Stanley and I literally just met. It was a cold outreach from me to him because I was impressed with everything that he was doing. And just listen to the words that he's saying: filtering systems, conditional logic, batch processing, differentiating the good leads from the poor leads. If you are a service-based business, it's different when I say it. You guys may hear, oh, well, he's the automation guy. He knows how to do all of that stuff. Listen to Stanley. He is your traditional service provider who says, no, wait a minute. I'm going to do my due diligence to figure out how to do this the right way. One of the things that you mentioned, I'm a huge fan of pre-qualifying. You know, I just don't think name and email is enough ever. If I'm going to get on the phone with anybody, I'm going to get some additional information. And a lot of times, as you mentioned, sometimes the length of the form can be a qualifier in itself. And then if you couple that with some really good questions, man, you're in a good position to every time an appointment is on your calendar, you can ensure a very high close rate. But one of the things that you mentioned, and I just want to highlight this for our listeners, did you hear Stanley say he doesn't throw away the quote unquote bad leads? I think that is so key because too often are people just focused on great, and don't have a system in place. It'd be different if you were mixing them in every day. And that's probably how it started out, right? And you're getting frustrated, like, oh, I just wasted 20 minutes on a call. Is there some way to filter them out? But the fact that you set aside a day to just kind of comb through and make sure there's no lost gold in there, you know, I think it's something that our listeners really need to pay attention to. And I'm thinking more so of process when you're speaking, not technology for some of you who get easily overwhelmed, but there's a process. Stanley said, hey, look, I want to filter the good leads, deal with them first, set aside some time to sort through the bad ones. And how it's working is ongoing. Every day, anytime. He could be asleep, he could be on vacation, he could be anywhere, and those appointments can appear on his schedule. So I want to jump to what I was gonna mention. So everybody at this point knows why I was attracted to the website, why I reached out to you, why you're on the podcast, and you're proving to be beyond what I envisioned this podcast would be. So thank you for that, Stanley.
No doubt.
I reached out to Stanley and we're talking, and I want to respect this time. I've got a 15-minute slot and I'm just telling him, hey, I got student loans, but I don't have issue. I just want to full disclosure. I just want to say great job on the website, you know, blah, blah, blah. And before we got off the phone, I said, hey, Stanley, who is your designer available? Who did that? And Stanley's response was, I did it. And I was taken aback, mainly because of the industry more so than himself, is that when you go to an attorney's website, you could tell it's a template. There's two things you could tell, Stanley. It's a template or it's some proprietary lawyer software that they have to use that's giving them some visibility online. So tell me about, because you've mentioned UX and user flow, you understand the journey and you understand how to optimize the journey online. That's just an expertise that you have. But tell the audience your approach, what it was like determining how to build your website and what you use to do it?
So as I mentioned earlier, I started off in WordPress,
Mm-hmm.
and I I knew enough to get stuff done there, but then it gets to a point where you're like, okay, I need to hire someone to really achieve the look I want. So I started off with this company in England that I founded, and they were dope.
Yeah.
And but then I was like, okay, I need to work on a UX here because there's some things here like I think we can improve. So then I ended up
Mm-hmm.
this dude Ryan Stewart, who is in the SEO space.
Okay.
Um, I looked at his website. I was like, oh, there's some good things here. Let me reach out to who his UX person is. And so I remember like I sat down and I hired this UX person to go through and overhaul some things in WordPress. And while he was doing that, and it's WordPress, so WordPress designer takes like 6 to 8 weeks sometimes just to get a damn landing page back, which
Mm-hmm.
sucked. During that time, I came across Webflow, and I was like my mind was blown because here's this tool that I was like, yo, this is actually, I think, going to be the future of how this works because you can iterate right there. You can get something from design to production and online in an instant. And I was like, okay, maybe I can use this tool. So while this designer was working on his UX upgrades to my WordPress, I started sketching out what my future website would look like. And I started using Figma because I could play around. It's just a pretty simple tool to use. It's like Photoshop, basically. And I started sketching it out, and I was like, okay, what are the things that I want? How do I want to look? And then I ended up designing the whole thing, and I started building it in Webflow, and I was like, oh, this looks really good, but I don't want to actually like, even though Webflow is a really great tool, there's still a learning curve there to do certain things. So then I ended up reaching out to this other company to do the build, but I had did all the design work already. And the one thing that in the design that got kind of trouble, and this is kind of where you initially reached out to me about, is how you found me. I think was you saw me on Video Ask, which is a tool. And the reason why that came about is I kept looking at the hero image as I was building the design. I was like, this hero sucks. It's either going to be a static photo of me, or it's going to be a generic photo of somebody, or it's going to be like this video loop in the background that does nothing. And I was like, there's got to be a way to do something better. And I remember seeing Video Ask on Product Hunt. And at that time, it was just like a way to get testimonials. That was the way they were using the tool, or to do client interaction. And I was like, wait, I think we should be able to use this tool to do like a choose your own story, kind of like a Hardy Boys mystery. And I was like, that'd actually be really dope to put in the hero if we can just embed that there, because ultimately you want to ask me questions. You don't want to have to go searching and going up to search bar. You're here because I have narrowly defined my services. I know what you're here for. And because I have that background work, I know what questions you're going to ask. And so now I can lead you on your own journey through asking the questions you want using this tool, Video Ask. So like once I had that tool, I was like, oh, great, we got this. This is going to be the new hero here. And it's like, that was it. And I realized then, like, these series of like lessons I learned over time, and then as no code tools were building up, I was like, I could do a lot of this myself because I knew what good design would look like. Because you follow it, you're like, they ain't that hard. Have some negative space, have some big ass line words so people can actually read, write simply, and then have like a balanced color scheme. And I was just building upon the lessons that I'd already learned over time from working alongside designers, developers. I learned from them. And I was like, okay, here's what I need to have.
I love it, man. And I'll highlight this. I worked at Lead Pages where we gave templates, landing page templates, and it was amazing how many people could take a functional design, like you mentioned, negative space, bold text, easy to read, and just totally destroy it. So I've learned that in terms of design, some people just have it and some people don't. And I think what I'm hearing from you too is you're really in tune with your strengths, with the things that you can do really well. And then you're not afraid to say, okay, well, look, I've taken it this far. This is where my strengths ends. Let me bring somebody on to take it to the finish line.
Yeah, dude, it's kind of like that's exactly how I look at it. But what I'm actually doing is saying, I picked up camera. I wanted to take better photos for my blog and stuff like that, right?
Okay.
So I was like, I'm gonna learn how to take photos, and because my disposable income started to increase, so I could buy a good camera and I could buy a good lens, right? And I can get this depth of field, and people think that's pretty just because you got depth of field.
Right.
But I'm taking these photos, and people now want to start to hire me to do their photos. And I thought about it, and I was like, I am just better than you. And so you want to pay me, that's great. But I'm not as good as the person you actually need to hire to do this thing.
Yes.
So I'll get you 90% there. But that last 10%, makes all the world a difference.
Man.
It takes you from just average to, whoa, what is this? And so when I look at like how I do things, how I build things, I can get myself 90% of the way there. But then I have to decide, is this something I want to spend to get that last 10%? And when it comes to something like coding for a website or something like that, I believe you should do it, because here's what people don't think about with their website. Your website, if you are someone who depends on organic traffic, or you're filtering everyone through your website is an employee, and you have to spend on your employee every single year. And so I set aside a budget for it, right? Like, because this is my employee, this is my secretary, this is my marketing channel, this is everything to me. So why wouldn't I spend $10, $15, $20, $40,000 a year maintaining my employee? Because that is what it is. And so then it's just like, how do we break up this budget? Where do we go to say, okay, who pushes me over the top and I get the full value? Because there is diminishing returns on that bell curve. You get to a point where you just spending money just to spend money. But there is something to be said about, no, you should spend up to here, because that makes perfect sense for where you're at.
Yep. Man. Thank you. Well said.
You're welcome, bro.
And you walk the walk, man, and you walk the walk better than you talk it. So it's like, as good as it sounds, everybody, just know that the process and the results speak for themselves as well. So Stanley, I can't thank you enough, man, for accepting the code invite, coming on. I know, I am 100% sure the listeners of this one are blown away, because if you are an example of somebody that is not afraid to do the work, do that 90%. But when you said that 10% makes all the difference, people may not be able to understand what 10% is missing, but you feel it. And when it's there, you feel it. So thank you for highlighting that. I know I mentioned it, but I want to give you the opportunity, just in case there's somewhere else. People who are listening, if they want to get a hold of you in any capacity, I know your profession is helping with student loan relief, and I think just the state of society that we're in, there's probably a lot of listeners that have gone to college or have kids that may be in that situation, or if they want to just follow you and just stay connected with you, where should they go?
You can come to the website, tateesq.com. You're subscribed to a newsletter when you contact me, everything like that. We have all that set up. There's also need to add the link to the newsletter, because that's something I decided to do this year, because it took me a while to convince myself that I need to have a newsletter as a lawyer, but there's a way to write it, because no one wants a damn newsletter from a lawyer, right?
Yeah,
so you got to figure out a way to connect with people in a relatable way, and I finally got that part down. So we've been rolling that out all year. But TateESQ.com is the website. If you need student loan help, feel free to sign up for a free 10-minute phone call. If you just want to reach out to me, find me on LinkedIn, Stanley Tate, student loan lawyer. I'm right there. Or you can catch me on my YouTube channel, as well as #1 student loan lawyer. So that's what I got for you.
Great. Well, listen, everybody, all of the links will be in the show notes as usual. Make sure you share this episode, everybody. Thank you again, Stanley, for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
All right, you're welcome, boss man. I appreciate you having me.
All right. Thank you for listening to this episode. Did you not get tremendous value out of what Stanley was saying or displaying or teaching? Teaching probably is more accurate, on how he built his business. I cannot stress enough. You cannot put the responsibility of your success and business growth in anybody else's hand but your own. Even if I were to work with you in a client capacity, there is still going to be work required on your end that I cannot do for you. My students, people who enroll in my programs, there's still work to be done. It does not matter who you are, where you are in business. You need to understand when you say, I want to be an entrepreneur, you not only sign up to wear all those hats at the time, and though you may take the hats off as time goes on, you're always responsible for every area of your business and the people that you put in place to operate those areas, including technology. Okay, so I think Stanley was a great example of that. I had you CEOs in mind, as well as you service providers, because you need to understand the plight for those of you who are just promising too much. You're doing too much. You think that giving away more is going to somehow qualify you to make more. And that's not the case. We are in a day and age now where people need specific results, specific outcomes. We don't care. Successful people don't care about more. They just care about more things working. Okay. So keep that in your mind as a CEO and as you service providers, as you go and continue to transact in the marketplace. And also, who needed to hear this? I believe, everybody needs to hear this, but for the most part, who is that friend, that associate, that family member, that business that you just came across that's traditionally service-based? They have somebody who is operating it that may know a little bit about the internet, but they may be spending too much on agencies and outside help. Share this with them. This is how they're going to save some money and get a higher quality of service. All right. And if you found today's episode valuable, make sure you share. For my first time listeners, this is where you subscribe. Make sure you go to either Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe and leave your 5-star rating and review. Episodes like this are released weekly on Thursday, and you don't want to miss out. Here at Automation Bridge, we're dedicated to training digital marketing professionals to become automation service providers. If you didn't know, there is a difference between digital marketing and marketing automation. And small businesses, they're in need of people who understand how to extract and optimize marketing strategies and match them with the best technology to deploy automated systems in their business for rapid growth. That's what an automation service provider does. We specialize in process optimization, technology, and systems building. It's different. It's a different, more detailed practice than digital marketing as a whole. So when you hear that, if you're a digital marketer and you want to scale your marketing efforts, if you're an aspiring professional that wants to provide the service of automation just from the jump, what I want to do is I'd invite you to go to automationbridge.com/ASP and take the next steps to talk to myself or someone on my team to ensure you'd be a good fit for our automation service provider program, where we have a structured framework, process, and program to take you through and equip you with all of the foundational elements that you need to have a profitable career, as well as ongoing coaching and training to ensure that you're getting the tutelage, accountability, and guidance that you need to reach success quickly. Okay, that's automationbridge.com/ASP. Also, we're accepting guests for the podcast. So if you know of a business owner like Stanley, who is in a traditional space, but is using automation in a really effective way, let them know about this podcast, and let them know to become a guest, I should say, on the podcast. If you're a SaaS founder of marketing or sales software, we'd love for you to come on and talk about your journey as a founder as well as your software. Okay, then lastly, if you're a marketing automation consultant and you're getting results, you've got a streamlined a streamlined process, proven framework, you figure some things out. I like to share, or I invite, I should say, all three of those audience collectively to become a guest at automationbridge.com/guest. Listen, I need you all to understand that the time is now. I need you to act urgently on both sides. There's business owners that need help, and they need to get their management together. So they need to get their learning in place so they can better manage people who they bring on. And they need people who understand how to build these systems in their business the right way. It's now. The time is here. The need has never been greater than what it is, and it's not going anywhere to our benefit. So again, make sure you go to automationbridge.com/ASP to become part of the solution. All of the show notes and podcasts are accessible at automationbridge.com/podcast. You can subscribe there and listen to all other episodes at your leisure. So until next time, I see you online. Automate responsibly, my friends.